Well, again, thank you for coming out on such a beautiful evening. I think we'll make it out well before 8 in the sunset so that you can get a little bit more fresh air and enjoy your time. And this is the only part of Salmon Blitz is indoors. The rest of it is all about being in the field. So I'll just start by giving you a little bit of background about the program. And this is our second season, so I'll brag about some of the accomplishments we had from last season, and then get into the more nitty-gritty of what we're looking for in the field, and hopefully by the end of the evening sign some of you up to be volunteers to go out and do some outings and help document salmon habitat. I want to take one quick step back, and like you said, my name is Kate Morse and I work for the Copper River Watershed Project, and this is not showing up so well, such a beautiful evening, but there's somewhat of a dark line around here that you can see, and this is us here in Cordova. That dark line is the border of the Copper River watershed, so all of the land and streams and waterways that fall within that line are all draining into the Copper River. And our organization is a nonprofit that's working to support the communities, economies, and cultures that depend on the wild salmon that live in that whole watershed, this whole watershed. And it takes that whole intact watershed to support healthy salmon populations due to their unique life cycle that takes place in both the salt and fresh water. So we do a wide range of projects, habitat restoration. We work on fish passage, looking at culverts and trying to restore culverts to help support access to fish habitat at all life stages. This Salmon Blitz program is one of our watershed-wide programs. I'll talk more about what its purpose is here in a second. And then we also do a wide range of education programs. We do some tourism programs. For those of you who have enjoyed Salmon Festival in the summertime, that's something that we help to coordinate with a lot of community partners. Everything that we do is with community partners because we're just a small organization of 2 3/4 staff, 4 3 1/4 maybe if you had our upriver field crews. And then we have a large network of other organizations and agencies that we work with in all of our projects. This evening we have Ken Hodges from the Forest Service here locally. He's one of our fish experts as part of Salmon Blitz. He not only helped guide the development of it, but he's very active in getting out and helping train volunteers in the field. I did want to say that this is the classroom training portion of it is you don't have to feel at the end of the night that you need to be confident in everything. We typically do make sure that there's an expert in the field with volunteers the first go around so that you gain confidence on the ground, not just staring at a talking head in the screen here. So don't feel too pressured. So the goal of Salmon Blitz is to get more salmon habitat accepted into the state of Alaska's anadromous waters catalog. So this is a screenshot of a web page from the Anadromous Waters Catalog. Anadromous, just a refresher, is that salt and freshwater life cycle. And this is what the state uses to track where anadromous fish are spawning, rearing, or migrating. For the state's purpose, it is to help document where salmon habitat is. So if there's a proposal for resource development, for building a road, for changing the landscape in some way, Fish and Game managers refer to this and determine whether or not the streams nearby are supporting salmon or not, and if they are, then there would be an increased increased steps to protect that habitat in the face of that development. It doesn't necessarily stop that development, but it would just need to take a little bit more into account to try to reduce the impacts on development on the habitat. So throughout the whole Copper River region, there are 35,600 total stream miles. And I'm curious what you all, maybe you read my email in its complete form if you saw the Watershed Project email, and you know how many miles are listed in the catalog. Does anyone want to take a guess about how much of all that habitat in the Copper River of 35,600 stream miles are currently documented as anadromous?
Less than 600.
Less than 600?
Oh wait, no, if you're talking about the Copper River.
More than the Copper River Delta.
It's 35?
Yeah, no, I mean more than, because I don't know how long the Copper River is.
So the Copper River itself is about 300 miles long from headwaters, but also there's a lot of tributaries. And there's a total of 35,600 stream miles. And so what that means is it's looking at, these blue ones with the yellow are cataloged as mattermist. It's hard to see here some that aren't cataloged, but it's counting all of these stream miles. So who wants to take another guess?
Ooh.
How much? You can do a percentage too if you want to do it that way. What percentage do you think? Anyone?
Is documented?
Yeah, or is supporting fish. We have a lot of water.
90%.
What's that?
I'd say 90%.
90%? All right, yeah. I mean, it's a lot of water, right? There's fish. See around. Any other guesses?
I don't know if it's documented though.
I don't know, I would guess that maybe documented, maybe less than 1,000.
Less than 1,000? Well, as of 2013, this doesn't include what we added last year. There's 2,168, or about 6%.
Oh,
So,
no.
and I had a
But that
reaction
proves the
like
point.
you,
I mean,
because
that's-
there is a lot of water, especially in Cordova.
Yeah.
There's rivers everywhere. There's
Yeah.
rivers through your driveway, through our roadways. But to me, it also shows that there's something that salmon need at different life stages in order to live in that habitat. They just can't live in any water.
Right.
There's certain components of that habitat that they need in order to survive and thrive in those areas. So from the Fish and Game side, it's a management tool, but from the other side, it's also, just getting an understanding of where is this habitat. There's not a lot of it compared to all the water we have, so let's make sure we have a good understanding of the big picture. And then because it's, fish can't live just anywhere, we really want to make sure that those areas that are supporting fish are protected into the future so that those fish populations are sustained. So that's what the gold Salmon Blitz is to add more blue lines and yellow squares, not only to help with management, but to help other agencies and organizations see this kind of as the clearinghouse of data, so we can get an idea of how that might change over time if habitat distribution changes for outside reasons. So let me just make sure I'm not skipping over anything. So so we've engaged citizens to help collect this data, and it's possible. I want to prove that to you. Last year, we had over 109 people that came out to help us. 31 were adults. Some of them were folks like you, but hopefully you'll have friends that you bring out with you into the field, and so through that way, more people get involved. And around Cordova, we had 11 experts from 6 different agencies, so I think it also shows teamwork that's involved in managing and protecting salmon in our watershed. We assessed 14 sites around Cordova and only 1 in the Copper Basin. And that was just because last year was our first year. We know the ground in the area around Cordova, and so when we were doing trial and error, we wanted to be in familiar territory. And then this year we've already spent much of August and September up in the Copper Basin doing surveys. So last year was heavy in Cordova, and these are some of the sites. Again, it's not showing up very well, but just to reference, the city is right there. You can kind of see the outline of the Yak Lake there. So Middle Arm is one site. We went out Power Creek, and that Hatchery Creek is on the left side of the road and did some surveys there. And then this is out Whiteshed Road, Samini Creek, Nicollet. Hartney Bay here, we surveyed that creek, and then we call it New Bridge Creek, and that's where Native Village of Yak built their new road out there, and that was the focus of one of our surveys. Can't really see very well, but the point being, salmon habitat looks very different. And so all these, there's not something consistent about what a site looks like necessarily for it to be supporting fish. It's either like Hartney Creek, it was super floodwater there, giant raging river. Nicollet Creek was a lot more shallow and lots of waterfalls. So anyway, just a couple samples. Then we went out the road, did a survey out by Sheridan. The Goose Meadows, that stretch right there is between Haystack Trail and Pipeline Lake Trail. So did a bunch of surveys up there. Fisherman's Trail Creek is by the Alleghenic Boat Ramp. So found salmon living there that wasn't cataloged. And then Saddlebag River, which is a glacial system, but it's being used for rearing. So covered a wide span, and again, pictures don't show up that well in this bright room, but everything, all the habitats look very different, from a very glaciated system to a small wetland trickle to a very rainforested canopy there for both of those. A couple more shots out the road. And so these are the results of our survey. So you can see each category or each column is a different type of fish, and at the end is the total fish. CO is our coho, CT is cutthroat trout, DV are dolly vartons, SC are sculpin, and ST is stickleback. And by the end of tonight, you'll know what all those look like, I promise. So just out of curiosity, can anyone pick out which of these locations had the highest fish abundance? And that's different than diversity. So anyone want to take a stab at which one they think was the most abundant? Hatchery Creek, yes, and you can ask Ken Hodges that they had.
Yes, lots.
We had the little Girl Scout troop out there, and each trap had like 100 fish in it. It felt like it was a big day. So yeah, most abundant is the most number of individuals, but the most abundant creek is not the most diverse creek. So anyone pick out which one you think is our most diverse site?
Goose Meadows has a little bit of everything.
Nicolette.
Goose Meadows actually had sticklebacks and
Oh,
Nicolette
right.
did not. So
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
yeah, Kristen.
yeah, so our Goose Meadows here, they had some of every type of species, and so that had the greatest diversity. So if you do a couple sites and you get familiar with different types of streams, you might start picking out, like, this is going to be stickleback heaven, or we're not going to find stickleback here. The big difference, Nicolette was that waterfall tumbling creek. Goose Meadows actually had some wetland area, and anywhere there's wetland grasses, there's lots of sticklebacks.
This might be a stupid question, but why is coho the only salmon that we report? Is it just the timing?
So coho, so pink salmon would be, they're hatching, pink and chum around these parts are hatching, and chums might overwinter a year or two, but they're typically living their life cycle in just a year. Coho will rear for multiple years, so they'll stay in the juvenile stage in fresh water for multiple seasons before they go out to the ocean. And sockeye will go into lakes to rear, and we're not sampling any lakes, and so that's why we're not finding sockeye. And Chinook go upriver. And it's, as for a volunteer program, you're happy that Chinook and coho aren't commonly found in the same system. Upriver they are, but they're very challenging to tell apart. So likely not going to be finding any Chinook here. But that's a great question. So as far as the data that we were able to, citizen scientists were able to submit to the state of Alaska, which we actually do, so you don't have to worry about this part of it. We'll take your data sheet and put it into the nomination form and submit it to Fish and Game. So we added almost 5 miles of completely undocumented habitat, so it wasn't listed, and now it is listed in the catalog. This increased upstream extent for listed species, what that means is that this river or stream was in the system, but it was only showing to a certain point, and there was actually more habitat if you continued upstream, and so about 1.5 miles of increased extent for that. Added new species, a little over 2.5, and that means it was already cataloged, but maybe they didn't know that they were a coho, it was just cataloged for trout. We are not submitting any of our trout data because it takes a little bit higher analysis to be able to determine whether or not they're anadromous, because there are non-anadromous trout, and that means some of the cutthroats and dolly vartons stay in the freshwater their whole life, and some of them migrate. And the only way to tell the difference is to take their ear bone out, which kills them and is expensive to then get analyzed. And because the only exception we would make is if we found a stream that we were catching trout in and not coho, because then if we have coho and trout in the same stream, then we can definitely get it nominated for coho without having to pay the extra money to get it nominated for trout. Does that make sense? So anyway, we're focusing on the coho for that reason. And so if you are in a stream and you're finding trout and it's not cataloged and you're not finding coho, I give you permission to collect a sample. Fish and Game is okay with that too. We have a permit. And then the last category is added life stage designation. So a little over 3.5 miles. What that means is, as far as the fish and game management part, they might just list it sometimes as being present, and that doesn't tell you is an adult there, are there juveniles there, and so we added a little bit of life stage designation, and it's going to be more useful for folks who are using this as like looking at the distribution of habitat. So where is rearing habitat for Chinook salmon versus the spawning habitat? You want to have that designation because if it was all just present, you wouldn't know which was which. So that's what that category means. So it might not get us to like 3,000 or 4,000 miles, but it still gets us a little bit further in terms of knowing our habitat. It also gets the community a little bit more aware about what's living right in your backyard and what salmon habitat looks like. So there's lots of other benefits besides these numbers here. So looking around this year, looking around Cordova, these are some of the sites that we're interested in looking at. You don't have to know where all of they are, where they all are. When I'm done talking, I do have a list of these sites here. So if there is a particular area that you're very interested in spending some time, or you have, I don't know, a reason that you're going out there already, you're welcome to put your name on that list and we'll make sure that you assign or you go to that site. Otherwise, we just look at your availability and then we assign folks based on what our plan is for that weekend, and it's more random, but these are some of the creeks that we'll be looking at this year. Some of them are around here, Power Creek and Hatchery Creek are out Power Creek Road. There's also some tributaries of Eak Lake that aren't very long, but they're not actually cataloged, and so it'd be interesting to add some of those. Moffett Creek is out in Middle Arm, so that's an Eak Lake, a canoe or a boat trip away. Fleming Creek and Cabin Lake Road, those two are actually going to be taken care of on Friday by the high school students. Sheridan River, Goose Meadows, we have some more work to do there, and there's a pond right across from Haystack Trail that's not documented but has coho in it, someone saw the other day. McKinley Lake, we'll have some work out there, also at Pipeline Lake, so that full trail system, Wooden Wrongway Ponds, and Saddlebag River and Lake all out the road. And then we are interested in a couple spawning surveys, and so this would potentially be like the Nicollet and Heaney and New Creek are all out Whiteshed Road, so if you're interested or if you go for walks out there frequently and you want to volunteer to actually stop at these sites like once a week for a period of weeks to see if you notice any spawning activity, we're interested in that. Because what we're finding is what's some of the new data out there is showing that coho salmon will actually leave their stream where they hatched and grew out of. They'll go into salt water and they'll go back into another freshwater stream along the coast, which is kind of surprising because we think that they migrate out and they grow big in the ocean and they come back and go to their home stream to spawn. And so Nicollet and Heaney are two creeks that we haven't seen spawning coho, but we're finding juvenile coho, so we're curious if there's spawning going on there. And the same with the New Bridge Creek. Odiak Pond and Stream I put on there just because we did restoration work, and Andy just told me that someone caught an adult coho in there yesterday. And we want to see, we just removed a barrier and want to see how many fish are getting up to spawn. So if anyone's interested in helping monitor Odiak salmon right here in town, we'd love it. So I'm going to pause here and see if there's any questions overall about the program or what we've accomplished, and then the next thing I'll do is go through the data sheet approach, like what you're doing in the field, and talking about the fish and habitat stuff. So are there any questions about the program at this point?